These pictures are from probably 20 years ago, actually. 21 years ago. I was thinner, I was in decent shape, and obviously younger. This was the first Christmas that I knew Bear. I had met him a month before. This is a picture of him at some museum that had a bear exhibit. He calls himself Bear, or Sicilian Big Bear, really. That's when he had like a waistline of 56 inches. I was about 40. I had gone through a bad divorce that took over 2 years. And then I had uterine fibroids so bad that I had a hysterectomy. So I was beginning all over again at age 40. And yeah, you get lonely and having to deal with living at my mom's. And I've taken care of my sons, which is not a big deal. I would do anything for them. But, you know, you want to talk to somebody, you need somebody. I didn't have a bunch of friends, so I started looking online. I looked through Skype. I looked through this or through that. Things have changed. They've cut out a lot of those programs now. And Craigslist used to have, men for women, men for men, women for men, women, and you put an ad there, sometimes with pictures. And I was kind of lonely. I went on 2 or 3 coffee dates, with these people that seemed nice. I'd get there and the guy looked like he just crawled out from a rock, and he sat and stared at me the whole time. Like, no. And then one fella I knew from the SSM, Sisters of St. Mary hospital system. I recognized him. He was middle management. That didn't matter to me. He seemed like a nice guy. So I arranged to meet him for, a sandwich or something. And he was 3 sheets to the wind. In other words, he was so nervous about whatever that he had been drinking. And I don't do that. And I had arranged with my sons to call me at a certain time to ask how things were. And if things were not going well, I would pretend that something was wrong and then go home, which is what I did. So, pretty soon, I saw this guy's picture. He's standing in front of a sports car, which a lot of guys will do that, and they're not their own car, really, and it wasn't his own car. But this was right when he got over here. He was going through a bad divorce as well. And somebody that was vacationing in Italy found out his background a little bit, which I'll tell you in a second, and invited him to stay with them until he got to feeling better. Well, he came over here, lost a lot of weight. He used to wear his old belt around his waist. It went around him about 2 times, 1.5 times. So he lost a lot of weight. This is one of the pictures on his profile. The other picture on his profile was, he was like taking a hike or something. He had an apple in his hand. He had a polo shirt on he'd always roll the sleeves up on his shirts. And he was quite muscular. He used to be on a rowing team in high school. He was eating an apple. And it just, like, bing, like, I gotta meet this guy. So, I arranged to meet him at this really nice restaurant in St. Charles. And I thought, if this is another one of those coffee dates, I am going to expose this guy because he says he's Italian. And I thought, yeah, right. I'm tired of people saying what they aren't, claiming to be something. So I thought, I'm going to call this guy out big time in front of everybody in this fancy restaurant. I don't give a shit anymore. Well, I get there and he was already there, talking to 2 or 3 of the waiters, and they're all laughing, and he had that yellow sweater on over his shoulders. He sat down and we're talking, and he said he was Sicilian, and I said, oh, Italian? He goes, no, I am not Italian, I am Sicilian. There is a difference. Yes, I understand, okay, but you're still under the nation of Italy. He said, finally he said his name was Big Bear, Sicilian Big Bear used to be his email, but since he's dead, he's not using it anymore, so I can say it. But I asked him, finally got to ask him what his name was, and he rattled it off so fast. I asked him to repeat, and he repeated it again, and I wanted him to slow down, and he just wouldn't. It's like, that's enough. But it's Don Corrado Augusto Cattaneo della Volta di San Nicandro. He's a prince of the two Italies. Now this goes back to when Italy was, before Italy was Italy. And they were kingdoms and little areas that were kingdoms and areas. I mean, my relatives come from way back when there were kingdoms too, my German side. And there was money in his family. And it was made by ensuring shipping back, way back, 1300s, 1400s. And one of his great whatever relatives was someone in power, a doge or somebody. It's like a big mayor or a senator or whatever. And they controlled a lot of money coming and going. And that's how their family kept their status and all. But basically, when he came over here to escape all his crapola life, nothing meant anything. I didn't get presents and gifts, and I mean, I didn't. He wasn't opulent. Okay, I did receive little things now and then from him. Probably got from a thrift store, but I don't care. Some of them I kept. He came over here and was staying with a salesman that worked for this dealership owned by a Sicilian. Deeply Sicilian ties to a lot of things in St. Louis. But be that as it may, he was living in this guy's house in a basement room. And the guy had a hot tub. I've been there, yeah. And I don't know. Generally, you would go to one's house, and there was a standard procedure. They greeted you, give you a kiss, took you by the hand, went back into the bedroom, and then came out after and ate something. Maybe there was a second time, maybe not. But anytime I was with him, I felt on top of the world. But when I was not, I felt terrible because that he had a slew of women, all pretty much in the same boat that I was, having had a crappy relationship and bad divorce and lonely and needing of attention. So he provided the attention, got free food, sometimes free lodging, rides here and there. He hung out at the library a lot, and that's where people would pick him up before he had car. He was in the same type of situation family-wise as I was. His father was kind of a vagabond and kind of came and went. His name was Fabio. Go figure. And his mother pretty much had the reins on all the family money, etc., etc., and called all the shots. She was probably a lot like my mother. So it was him and his two brothers that were younger. He had a brother 2 years younger, like I did, and a brother 6 years younger, like I did. He had one that wasn't too smart, like I did. That was the oldest of his two brothers. Mine was the older of the two brothers. Yeah. We had a lot in common. A lot in common. So we could understand each other in the sense of how we felt about life and stuff. And I had reached a point in my life where I didn't give a poop anymore. I had to break free and fly, basically. And I was thinking of going off to Europe and seeing Europe for, cleaning someone's house, being able to stay the night, cooking for them, being able to stay the night. And I started making arrangements with various people to do that. And probably a good thing I didn't. God knows what would have happened. But anyway, he was doing the same thing here, basically. It's like he had to get away. And he was here, and he was, except for cleaning house, he was fulfilling another need. So, a gigolo, I guess, except in lieu of money, it was favors and things. One woman and a lot of them had money or position that he could use. And one that he knew before me, that he still knew, her name's Susan. And I always called her Susan the Stupid Goose. Because she's not too smart. She had a lot of money. Her dad had a high attorney position in St. Louis County. He was head of prosecuting attorneys at one time or something. Lived in a big house alone with her mom. And he could do what he wanted. He could come and go and borrow stuff, and she gave him a car. And I actually fixed that car once. Put on a new bumper and quarter panel. Because she gave it to her son, and her son thought it was an old lady car, so he crashed it. And then she bought parts that came in the mail, and then I fixed it, and then it was his car. Oh, there's some stories I can tell you. Anyway, then he had a 95 Toyota Camry to go here and there in. And he talked her into getting this house down in the city. I've got a picture of it. A house built in about 1900. It was a duplex. This doorway had a door that went into the first floor and then up the stairs into the second floor. The electric had already been fixed. There was a renter in the bottom already. He talked her into buying it for getaways and parties with her friends at college. She was an art teacher or something. And then after a while, he wanted to buy it from her. He didn't have a social security number. So to be able to buy something, he had to go through somebody. So then he and I repaired it. Retiled the bathrooms. The electric was already fine. It's all the other systems that we were working on. He knew I was handy. I knew about tools. So we worked on it together. I loved working on it with him. It was fun. He was good-spirited. He wanted to learn how to do things. I learned words like martello, which is a hammer. And he used to call nails pins. So we fixed up the place. And then, he was paying Susan on it. She had purchased it. Then he wanted to buy it outright. He got her a job down in Mississippi. That way he could go visit her in Mississippi if things got hot in St. Louis. But to do that, he had to have a social security number, and he didn't, so he went through another one of his women. PJ, who I hate with a passion. I generally don't hate people, but I hate her. She's about 5 foot tall. Nasty as can be. She's a nurse, so she made good, steady income. Well, he talked her into... they had, was one of his girlfriends as well. And she got all gooey-eyed over the whole idea of marrying a prince. So she had all kinds of little models of castles and stuff, and she was obnoxious. I hated her. I still hate her. Anyway, he went through her, formed some kind of little partnership thing, and he ended up buying it from her, or through her. I don't know if it went to her when he passed or not. I don't know what happened. But I knew several of these people, and I knew more existed that I didn't know about. This is what he looked like. This was the first picture when he was first at my house. That was such a nice one. It was my favorite one of him. He was smiling. Is that a good smile or evil smile? I think it was a... who knows? I was into the relationship for 2 years when I got a phone call from one of his women that found his information on the computer he left himself into at her house. She called me and was telling me all kinds of stuff and his usual, what he did when he met her at the door and how it progressed and this and that, and it was exactly the same. And the cute nicknames he called her, same here. So guys, if you're going to see a lot of women, find a cute nickname to call them, and that way you can't slip up and call them by someone else's real name. So he called me Pip, or Pippi. So, anyway, after that, we had a big argument and a fight. And he didn't see me for a while. And I didn't know what to do. I was all torn up. Another fella I met online who was Italian, he says, tell you what, why don't you come over here for a week? I'll send you the ticket. You come over here and see what it's like over here and get to know me. No strings attached. Okay. So I did. Nice fella. He's about 5 foot tall. He smoked and drank, which I don't do. And he works for a Belgian construction company in Dubai. But I went over to Italy and I met his family and his little town that I love dearly. I love the people very much. It's Maiano in the Friuli Venezia Giulia area in the northeast. Lovely, lovely. And so one thing led to another, and he came over for a visit, and we went out to see Yellowstone Park. We rented a camper. And then later in the year, by email, he asked me if I would marry him, and I could move out there. I'd never have to worry about work or anything else. And I was thinking about my kids and being able to afford, maybe they could go to Europe, and they have more opportunities for jobs and all that. And that didn't work out. So I came back and I hooked up with Bear again until his death 11 years ago. He had leukemia. But I don't snoop and everything, but when he did come back, he had the suitcase sent to my house because he must have been having issues with other people at the time. In there I found his Certificato di Residenza, Catania della Volta, Corrado. He was nato a Catania, it means he was born in Catania, the 16th of February 1953. È residente in questo comune alla via Pozzelli. Oh, street, Pozzelli Street, number 5. Era iscritto in questo registro di popolazioni. Blah, blah, blah. And his resume also, he calls himself Dr. Corrado Catania della Volta. And then my Italian teacher said anyone that has like a 2-year degree, a laurea, often call themselves doctors. So he says, be wary. Doctor of Law from University of Naples, 1978, summa cum laude. And I guess he lists what his thesis was on and his advisor's name. Legal apprentice for procuratore legale. 2nd degree in economics and commerce. He worked as a stockbroker in Rome. He has a brokerage license in Naples, Palermo, Genoa, as well as Rome. His grandma lived in Genoa. Had a big palace home, with a big stately home. He was a member of the Consiglio di Ordine degli Agenti di Cambio di Roma, member of the Committee of Stockbrokers of Rome, secretary and treasurer of committee. He wrote articles for newspapers. Member of Commission di Forza Italia, which is their soccer team, to improve Italian stock exchange. Currently traveling in the U.S., improving English, and personal financial advisor. Languages spoken Italian, French, and English. I know I've gone on way, way too long, but I know Deb was curious, and maybe some other people wondering, in the past, I don't know. I miss the guy. I really do. He got me a gym membership one summer, and I was in decent shape. That's when we worked on his house that he bought. Tiling and constructing and doing this and that and the other thing. I taught him about some tools and how to do certain things because I happen to know. And he learned. And I don't know, we had a good time. He had a metric tape measure. He'd say, no, and we use a correct one. Then I pull out, where is it? It's in the other room. My tape measure, and we'd be measuring. He'd be measuring from the bottom, and I'd be measuring from the top or the side or something. And he'd say, it's 24 and 2 lines. That stuck with me, and I wrote a poem called 24 and 2 lines. And I have it on YouTube somewhere in the dank archives. But it came down to, when I wasn't with him, I was gnashing my teeth and in hell. I was in hell. But when I was with him, I was on top of the world. So my sons don't like him. They hate him. Because they hated seeing me go through all that. And yeah, I guess so. It's someone taking advantage of other people's weaknesses? I don't know. There's another word. But I still love him. Crazy as that sounds. He actually made me feel like a person. He never hit me. He never laid a hand on me. One time, though, I pissed him off so much that I could just see it. If I could, I would, And I would never think to do anything wrong. I learned some recipes from him. He liked blue cheese, and I can't eat blue cheese, but he made a really good blue cheese pasta, which I did try because he made it. And he did a really good job. It just, blue cheese makes my throat close up. I can't eat it. He preferred dogs, but that's okay. He liked cardinals, and he wanted to hybrid cardinals and finches together, which is illegal. But he was wanting to try anyway. He liked birds a lot. A lot. He had issues with his childhood, and I had issues with my childhood. And I think we understood each other without having to say anything. I wanted to learn Italian to understand him from the inside out, which I tried. And he tried. He has a lot of patience, but when it came to grammar, which I am terrible with, I could see the frustration. And I knew when to say, okay, let's get on to something else. He was from the old school where they used essi instead of loro for they. I have 2 or 3 books that I got from him. One is Dante's Inferno, which was a school book. They had to memorize that when he was in school. Oh my God. It's written in Old Italian, which is like a third person type of thing. They use that kind of grammar and language. Also have a philosophy book, which is about the great philosophers that we've had through history in Italian. And I have other things in Italian. And I really I'm thankful that I did want to learn, because German basically was what I had taken before, and I'd taken Russian before. And they're more guttural. They're not the Romance language. Latin, French, Italian, Portuguese, they're more the Romance languages. But I'm glad I took it, and I'm glad I still understand it. And at the time, I didn't know very much Italian, and now I understand it, I can hear it, I can read it. I just wish I had that ability back then, but maybe it was better that I didn't. I knew more than I could respond to, so sometimes he'd take a phone call from his daughter or something, and didn't think I could understand him, but I could. That's why I kind of knew what was going on. But that, in a huge nutshell, sorry for the length of time, but that is Bear. And I miss him. Mi manque lui molto. Oh, God. Wake up now. I promise the other videos coming will be better. But I've been putting it off because, anything that deep-seated in you, good or bad, it brings up all these memories, and I had to find the pictures. There are other pictures, but, yep. Upward and onward.